Okay, it's Eric from EHS Racing. We're just starting our Wolverine testing. You have to excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold, so my voice ain't very good at the moment. We've done a couple baseline tests right now. We got a brand new Wolverine R-Spec. It's got about 30 miles on it right now. The only thing we've added was the fuel controller that we're making for it, which we'll have turned on and off in the first couple of segments here. I'm just going to show you guys our baseline runs that we found. We're doing everything in high range right now. So out the box with a stock exhaust, nothing done to anything with the air box, with the fuel controller on there. We're pushing about 36.5 horsepower, which followed pretty close to suit with the 16 Grizzly that we tested and the Kodiak. Air to fuel ratios are all following the same as the Grizzly. They're really lean down at the bottom RPMs. Wide open throttle, they run quite well. They're going to get hot, have a lot of fan turning on because it just needs a lot of fuel, just like we found out with the Grizzly stuff, which I'll show you guys on the dyno here when we start it up. These are 3 baseline passes, wide open throttle, a couple different mile an hours we started at. All same data. Okay, I'll keep this video going. This is the air to fuel ratio that everybody talks about. 18.4 is the measurement of free air. You generally want to see something around 13.5, 13.7, you know, even down to 12.5. Anything richer than 12.5 is usually a little too rich, and anything leaner than 14.2 is a little too lean. Different bikes will make different power and different air to fuel ratios, but for these and the Grizzlies, we like to target somewhere around 13.2 at wide open throttle, and then usually a little bit leaner at the bottom, and then it'll have a little bit of a rich dip getting into the throttle. We'll have RPM over here, mile an hour over there. I'll shoot a video while we're doing a pass here, so I'll have to talk a little bit louder. I'll try to focus on this and tell you what throttle position I'm at, so you can see the difference of adding the fuel versus not adding the fuel is what it's going to do for the air to fuel ratio. Okay, this is our fuel controller. This is the map we're making for the Wolverine. So we're gonna have green at 4.5, yellow at 2.5, red at 0.5 point, green blue at 1.5, yellow blue at 2.5, and red blue at 3. So basically we have all fuel getting turned off, or additional fuel. We're just running on stock Yamaha fuel at wide open throttle. The rest of it we're gonna be adding fuel. That's like I was saying, it runs good at wide open throttle, but down low it is quite lean. The way we got our sniffer stuffed in the stock exhaust, we can only get it in so far right now, so we'll get a little fictitious data at lower RPMs, but you can see that it definitely is following suit with the Grizzly. Alright, so let's see if I follow my finger right there. Air to fuel 18.4, measuring free air means we're not really measuring quite a lot. Here, I'm gonna put it in neutral. We should be able to see it drop. You get a little more flow, you can see it read a little bit better. That's with the fuel controller. Okay, so that's where we want it. So say we take the fuel controller. Oops, let me zoom out. Alright, we're gonna shut the green mode off because that's what we were just running in. We'll turn this one from 4.5 down to off. Okay. Let's go back there to fuel. see it's 15, 15.5. That is lean. That is why your buggies will run hot from the factory. It'll follow suit when we're doing runs on the dyno, which you can watch. I'll show you. It's just a lot harder to hear while I'm in the middle there of doing a pass. So we'll go back to 4.5. So I'm going to leave it at 4.5. We're going to do some not recording passes, but we're going to watch it while we're driving it on the dyno, which will kind of simulate real life. Okay. You watch the mile an hour over there on the corner. Mile an hour, 4,000 RPM. Okay, that's holding where we want it. So let's go and turn this back off. Okay, we're on stock Yamaha fuel right now. Same thing. To it while it's running. You can watch the thing dip right away. That's what we want to see. Okay, so I'm going to do some recording passes so you can guys see the horsepower. My guess, which I can do the test, but with or without our fuel controller, it probably will make almost identical peak horsepower within 1 or so, because we're not adding any fuel or doing anything special at wide open throttle. Where these are gonna need fuel is how, you know, the normal farmer, ride it around, leisurely type people are gonna need it. That's where they're gonna run the hottest. If you're out hammering on it, you know, treating it like a razor, it's probably gonna run pretty dang good. But at cruising speeds going through the trails, that's where these things are going to get really hot, and everything's going to wear out way quicker. Because, you know I've had it, only the 40 miles I've had it cruising around my, you know, fields and things like that, the fan runs constantly. And then once I put the fuel controller on there, it cut it down significantly. It still runs a fair amount, but it cut it down a lot. All right. So we just kicked our fan on. I can hear it. It means it's getting a little hot. I'm going to turn the fans on. You won't be able to hear me as good anymore. I'm going to do one pass and then we'll do it. I'm trying to keep the heat off this thing on the dyno, because it will get warm as testing goes. Okay, so what we got in here, That's our sniffer stuffed up in the stock exhaust going to our wideband. Alright, almost made 37 horsepower. Really not too bad. I mean, for the type of buggy it is, I mean, I'm actually pretty happy it makes 37 horsepower stock. So we can get it up to 43 to 45 like the Grizzly. The one thing I'm worried about on this one though is definitely the airbox situation on there. We'll see what happens as testing goes, but that may be a limiting factor once we start hitting higher RPM and higher horsepower. But there's our air to fuel ratio, doing just about like we like it. We'll take the tip off. I'll hit pause on the video and we'll come back and make another pass and see what removing the tip does, because on the 16s that was good for 1.5 horsepower too. So we'll be back. Okay, we're back. We're gonna do the same test with just the exhaust tip removed, see how much horsepower we pick up. Try to keep track of air to fuel ratio also. Pretty sure that the way we got the sniffer in there, our air to fuel readings will be almost useless at this time, but we'll just do the test to keep track of horsepower. With that tip removed, it just lets a lot of air back in instead of sucking it back through that little pea shooter. That's just got a big hole there now, so we really got to get the sniffer a long way up in there, and without drilling a bunch of holes way down in the pipe, which I did for the Grizzly testing. It's a pain in the butt, so we're just going to keep track of horsepower right now. Okay, horsepower gains with the tip were marginal. It did lean our air to fuel ratio. That chunk right here I would trust, because that's where there's enough flow to not get the fresh air getting sucked back in on the negative stroke. So we probably would need just a little bit more fuel to make it run as good out there. So let's get rid of only 2 runs here. Keep let's go add some fuel and do another pass. Let me see what happens. Okay, so let's watch the fuel controller, because I get calls on tech support every day. This might save me a couple of calls. Okay, so we added the tip. We're probably going to want to add a 1/2 to 1 point in the red, because that's where it's wide open. I don't think it'll affect much other areas in there, but I'll know more once I do the exhaust testing. So we want to add that to the red. Little tap, little tap, little tap, 3 times goes to red. If you go here and hold it it just keeps going through the things. Okay, everybody gets confused about the little taps. It goes green, hang on, we'll get back to the beginning. Green, yellow, red. Green, blue, yellow, blue, red, blue. Green, yellow, red. We're gonna add fuel here. Go from a half. Let's go to 1.5. That probably is gonna be about right with the mapping we got. Okay, that brought our air to fuel ratio down pretty close where I would want it. 13.2 to 13.0, right in that ballpark. Horsepower gain is marginal. You know, we did pick up a little bit over not adding the fuel, but you can't expect much. Quarter horsepower, half a horsepower here with hitting the button. That's pretty good. Our main thing is just keeping track of this. Alright, so we are up to 37.5, almost, but just a tip in the fuel controller right now. So I'm going to go through and put our Barker exhaust that we got and shoot another video, and then we'll merge them together, so this one will be over. Keep track. Okay, we're back. We just got the Barker duals installed. They are very nice. Got a moderate horsepower increase. I think we need to do some clutching along with them, and then we're going to really see where they're going to shine. I will show you guys a run, show you what they look like, how they install. I'll do some talking. I'm sure you want to look at them and not me. So these are the Barker duals. Get up here. So when you go to install them, you got to take out the CVT exhaust there and reroute it over there. Otherwise you guys will get confused, I imagine, if you don't take that out of there. Okay, so we're changing some clutch weights. Stock Wolverines are approximately a 21 gram weight. We are going to an 18 gram weight. I only had 6 18s in stock, so we're going to do 6 18s and 2 of the factory 21s and see the effect that it has on it. I think it'll give us closer to what we're looking for. If you haven't been inside, that's what the primary, secondary looks like. It is easier to get in there when you got the bed off, for sure. A little more room. All in all, not that hard of a clutch to get off and back on. There's the original ones. So, we'll be back in a few minutes with an update on testing. Okay, I got clutches back in. I guess if you guys have never done this before, I'll give you a couple of pointers. That way it is a little simpler for you. You got to take the 4 bolts out of the cage once you get right here. The long bolts are going to be here and here if you set them down and forget. There's a shorter bolt there and there. You got a 22 mil nut behind here you're going to have to take off. It is a normal right hand thread, it's not left hand. When it's going back together, it is very important that you get the splines lined up with the inner plate. If you don't, it's going to toast it. There's just no way around it. You got to take one of the bolts out of here on your cage and put it in one of these holes over here and spread your secondary. That way your belt goes down and it gives you enough clearance to press it all in there. So that bolt, tighten it up in there, you know, be gentle, it'll spread the secondary out, the belt drops, and then you slide the primary sheave into place with the cam plate and line the teeth up. It should go by hand enough that that washer, the big washer behind the 22 mil nut, you know, fills the hole of the washer. If it's real wobbly, you haven't went far enough. So make sure you're on that, otherwise you're going to cost yourself a bunch of money. We'll be testing in just a few minutes. Alright, we went through and did a bunch of clutch weight testing. Really determined that the 21s weren't too bad in there. I think what we need is a softer secondary spring. We're just fading on the horsepower and the upper RPMs. We also did some intake testing. That's some of these stronger front side curves. We were able to make it a good bit stronger playing with different intakes on there. All the clutch weight stuff was almost ineffective on the dyno. We're trying to make it hang in the 6,000 to 7,000 RPM range a little bit longer, and the secondary spring is just making it shift a little too quick. So we went heavier weights and lighter weights and mixes of both, and nothing really worked great. I ended up with a set of 418s and 421s, and I think I'm going to leave that and go with the softer secondary for the next test. I think that'll be closer to what I want with the size tires I'm going to run. But that'll be left open. I'll have to do that next week because I don't have any secondary springs. We have tore apart the intake though and found a little bit of horsepower there. We just ran this on the end. That was actually one of the strongest front side curves with it open. We also had one of our 16 Grizzly air boxes stuffed down in there with it like that, and that did basically as good as just that short little intake. So there is some power to be made in the intake. It's just such a big, cumbersome system there that it's going to be hard to make something, you know, that's perfect for it. All this linkage has got to fit in there. It's a pain in the butt. Just taking the airbox lid off, we actually lost a couple of horsepower, so I'm not going to advise that for people. It seems to do better with the way that air filter is designed with the airbox on. I didn't do anything on the front side of the airbox to try to get more air to that to see if it helped it. But no matter what we did here, it didn't do a ton. It just needs something better from here to here, and that's where all the horsepower is going to be. So I don't know where I want to put this thing, if I'm going to try to make it like the Kodiak where it's going to tote the front wheels. I really just want a farm buggy, which I think most people will. But we may make an intake for it. I got to decide that. You know, something short like that with an air filter hanging there. If you guys are not worried about water and mud, it would be pretty simple. But we got to get the clutching figured out. Once we got that, we'll stick it back up here on the dyno. So all in all, 41 and a half horsepower we ended at today, which is pretty decent. We're only a couple shy of what the Grizzly Kodiak was making with a lot heavier chassis. So we'll see. I think we can make it match that, if not a little bit more, and then we'll go into the next level of stuff. Alright, this is just the finish up video for the Wolverine testing. We shot all the initial testing a couple weeks ago. I was just pretty sick, and it got even worse after that video, so we had to put everything on hold. It just turned into a mess. So we basically didn't get much farther with the clutching. We got a bunch of stuff from EPI to try some different springs. We're gonna play with the secondary. Honestly, after riding it, the clutching, with just the weight change that we had and the power we were making, I mean, it felt great. It really was working well. What we had going on the dyno when it was pulling through 6,000 to 7,000 RPM a little too fast. In the real world, you don't really notice that because there's just that much more load on the dyno, and we were doing everything in inertia testing, and inertia is what's going to show the horsepower gains. When we do it on load testing, you know, it's just like running the brakes on the dyno, so it just pulls it way down. We can do a little more simulation and track horsepower gains with it, but you know, your butt dyno kind of tells you what your buggy is actually gonna like. So we're still gonna play with it, but we're gonna get this video up online so you guys can see the gains on it. I'll do a little cruising around with it so you can see the actual sound of the exhaust, because I didn't have anything out there of that. But all in all, I mean, this thing it runs awesome. I'm pretty happy with the stock clutching on there. The horsepower would have reflected a little bit higher numbers if we could have stretched it out from 6 to 7 instead of pulling through it so quick. But then it probably wouldn't have rode as good. So we'll see. I'm still up in the air on that. We got stock tires too. You know, a lot of you guys are going to have bigger tires, so you may find the need to do different clutching than what we got going on. But stock tires, this clutching, I mean, we're hitting 53 to 55 mile an hour. It gets there in a hurry. You know, you can really run about 3/4 throttle and hang out there. But the overall, you know, when the secondary shifts out versus when the time is and how it's pulling it, I mean, it does pull well. I probably can't go up the road and show you guys mile an hour because we had the cops here a couple times yesterday drag racing in the road, so I'm going to be good for a couple of days. We'll be back.